You're good.
Okay, so for our last class, if you guys remember, we talked about variability, and then we did a mini lab where we saw like our human variabilities. So like earlobes or the tongue roll or eye color, and also just different continuous or discrete like variables and stuff like that. Or discrete traits, I mean. So this class we'll be doing natural selection, artificial selection, and adaptations. So can anyone tell me what natural selection is? Or has an idea of what natural selection is? Yes?
So it's in the wild, kind of like survival of the fittest, who will survive certain situations or environments.
Yes, exactly. So it's like the environment chooses like two animals or like organisms to mate, kind of thing. So can anyone give me an example?
Like animals who are good at surviving will mate with each other so that their offspring have a good chance of surviving.
That is exactly it. What I've found out that was really interesting was like giraffes, for example, in an environment like they could, or in an ecosystem, giraffes who have like shorter necks and long necks, but then if there's something that happens with like the lower shrubs or the lower kind of bushes and stuff, they'll, like something happens to those shrubs, they will affect the giraffes and stuff, right? So therefore the giraffes would die out as well. So that's why giraffes with longer necks will continue to produce offspring that will be able to survive, which create giraffes like with really long necks now. And for artificial selection, another natural selection, you guys may be familiar with Darwin. You guys know who Darwin is? Yeah? So he went to the Galapagos Island and he found out that the finches there all have different beaks, and for specific reasons, so that they could each eat different types of food. He found out that, so according to their beaks, they could eat like seeds, or they could eat insects, or all that kind of stuff. So the next one, so let's go finches, and then giraffe, and then it's a giraffe. Okay, so for artificial selection, does anyone know what artificial selection is, or has an idea of what it is? Yes. Oh, yes, Alex?
That's humans selecting things based on the traits they want?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
species?
Exactly. Do you have an idea of what kind of species that humans
Like-
could interfere with?
Like dogs, for example?
Yeah, dogs. So people can select dogs, different types of dogs, and create an offspring to have like thick fur or like shiny fur or like certain, I guess, eye colors or different shapes and sizes, like miniature dogs, and all that stuff. But artificial selection is about humans intervening and trying to create the perfect or specific trait in that offspring. Another example would be like sheep, and other examples are like ligers, and mules, which are horses and donkeys that create the offspring. Also, in like tons of kittens and dogs, like I said. Yes?
Aren't mules not a separate species because they can't reproduce? Yeah.
Yeah, they are, but they would still be under artificial selection because people like intervene with their offspring kind of thing, right? Development. But you're right, they can't reproduce. But we'll get into that some other class. All right. So moving on to adaptation. Adaptation is actually a huge part of natural selection. So be sure not to, and sometimes like misconceptions for students, they would mix up adaptation and natural selection. Because adaptation is the process, or no, adaptation is the trait, whereas natural selection is the process of evolution. So there's 3 types of adaptation. But an adaptation, can anyone tell me an example of an adaptation in any animal?
Giraffes' long necks.
Yes, that's a good one. Another one would be rabbits, for example. It's winter time right now, right? So what's the fur on rabbits right now? White. And why is that? Yeah, exactly. So it blends into the snow. And then so when it's in spring and summertime, their fur will slowly turn brown, which will then help blend in with the grass and all that. So there's actually 3 different adaptations, but you only need to worry about 2. The first one is behavioral. Okay, I'm going to change markers. Behavioral. Oh, I think I spelled that wrong. But I'm not an English teacher, so. So behavioral adaptation is traits to help the organism to survive, such as bird calls or migration, hibernation, all that kind of stuff. And they can also, it's also traits that help with tools such as like language or like swarming behaviors. And number 2 is physiological. The one that you guys need to know is physiological. Physiological. All right, this is traits that allow organisms to perform special features, such as like slime or venom in snakes.
Sorry, I was just laughing at slime.
Oh, yeah, slime. In certain like fishes, when they feel like they're like invaded kind of thing, they produce a slime that will allow the animal, like the predator, to not be able to catch them, right? So it just
Cool.
slip out kind of thing. Yeah. But other than special features, they can also do things that would help with homeostasis. And the third one is morphological. Sorry, I can't spell. But this is this is like traits that help shape the organism, but you guys don't need to know that for grade 9, so don't worry about that. So that all these adaptations all benefit the organism. So what do you think could happen if a species is unable to adapt to their organism or adapt to their environment or their habitat? What do you think could happen? Yes.
Through natural selection, they might be kind of pushed out or die out.
Exactly. Yes. So you can see how they all tie in together, right? Natural selection and adaptation. And sometimes students or you guys can misconceive those 2 terms, but it's totally fine. Just remember that adaptations are traits and natural selection is the process of evolution, which you guys will learn later on as well. So now we will get into our groups that we have split up already. Oh, by the way, make sure you guys put this on the worksheet that you guys have when I handed you guys at the beginning of the unit. Just to fill it out, and by the end of the class, I want to be able to see that you guys have all filled it out, so make sure to come to me before you guys leave the class, okay? So our next part of class will be our predator-prey simulation. So this is where we will go into groups, predetermined groups already. I've told you guys about it yesterday. We will do these with pom-poms and forks and spoons. and we'll see who will survive the longest. All right.